My name is Kirk Yazel. I've lived here in Ripon since about 1999. I'm married to the love of my life, MZ. And I've been fortunate enough to make a living as a metal sculptor since the year 2000. Sam approached me about a month ago in regard to speaking tonight about creativity, and I was kind of hesitant at first. I said, "What do you want? I don't know anything about creativity. Why do you want me to speak?" And he said, "Well, maybe you can do it." And he explained what he wanted. So once he explained what he wanted, I decided maybe I could possibly get something done this evening. So I guess to start the conversation, I would like to ask the following question. Who here has a career that matches the dreams they had as a child? Okay. All right. I mean, that's cool. And who here is earning an income from a career or a company that your parent or parents suggested? Okay, 1, 2. Well, I can honestly say no to both answers. I didn't have a dream as a child that I was going to grow up to be a fireman or a policeman or anything like that. I really didn't dream about what I was going to grow up to be. And I would never have dreamt that I am doing what I'm doing now. So how did I get here? How did I get where I am today as far as what I do? And I guess there's several things that have led me to the career I have now. One of the first things is how God wired me. Several years ago at RCC, they had these series of seminars that we took that were kind of help you determine workshops to help you determine how you were wired. And I'd never taken anything like that. And when it was all said and done, it came out to say that my #1 gift was craftsmanship. And so that explains some things. It explains two things, that creating and making things is my happy place. I mean, that's where I'm happy, that's where I feel satisfied, that's where I feel comfortable. And that's where I get the most satisfaction out of my work. This also explains why I've had creative outlets all my life. I mean, since I was a little kid. It's one of my earliest memories as a child, is some of the people in here may relate to it, but I had a John Deere tractor. I grew up on a farm in Texas, and I had a John Deere tractor, but I didn't have the disc or plow that went with it. So with the coat hanger and some empty spools of thread, I made a plow. And I mean, that's one of the first things I can remember really recreating myself. And I've had other creative outlets. I've made fishing lures, fishing rods, log furniture, wood carvings, and a number of other things. But these were always secondary to my employment. My father passed away when I was about 6, and my mother remarried. In my formative years of growing up, I had a stepfather, and one of the things he said to me was, go to college and make a living with your head, not your hands. And I'd say, parents give you advice, and being a grandparent now and a parent, in looking back on some things, the best advice you get is not always from your parents. I can honestly say that. But I took that to heart, and I went to college, and I graduated from college, and I began a career in sales and marketing. And I was involved and I was making a living with my head, basically, and that was it. My hands weren't involved. And so I did that for 18 years, and I was involved with an international company, and my ambition was to become the national sales manager for the United States. Well, God has other plans for us, and at some point in this deal, a seed was planted, and the seed is that one day MZ was looking through a gardening magazine, and she came across these pictures of some rusty flowers in a garden. And we were pretty heavily into gardening at the time, and she said, "I'd like to have some of those for my garden. I think they would look pretty." And I said, "I can make those." All I need is a welder and a plasma cutter and a few other things. And so I had some friends and had some friends in the welding supply business, so with a very small investment, I was able to get some fired up in the basement, and after a few trips to Ace Hardware and Menards, I built a flower, and that was it. But who knew that ugly thing right there would be a genesis to a new career? It's certainly not me. And Pastor Mike's message today kind of stuck with me because this part of it, it's what I call following the green lights. I was in a career and highly frustrated in the fact that I was wanting to be the national sales manager, and they'd hired like 4, and each one of them got fired or quit, and they wouldn't promote me to national sales manager. So I was at a high level of frustration with my career. So in 2000, I turned 40, and I had what's been described as a midlife crisis. Some men at this stage in their life buy the sports car that they've always wanted. Some men have an affair with a younger woman. I love MZ, so I wasn't going to do that. and I couldn't afford the sports car, so I decided to quit my job that I'd had for 18 years and do something, but not knowing exactly what it was. And when I talk about following the green lights, this is an example. That flower there, being the genesis of a new career, neighbor from across the street from where we lived was Jeff Miller. He came over and he said, "Hey, I'd like for you to make one of those for my mom for Mother's Day." And I said, "I can do that." And Barb Miller loved it. She goes, "Well, I got a friend that has a store downtown, and I think she could probably sell them in the store." So I went and talked to the lady in the store. She goes, "Yeah, I'll sell them." I said, you need to go to market in Madison and see if you can sell them there." I went to the market in Madison and did quite well there. And while I was there, a lady from Spring Green came by and she goes, "I'd like to invite you to our art fair." So I went to an art fair. And from that art show, producers saw my work, and I was invited to other higher-end juried art festivals. And from that, I decided that we had a viable income source. So, but how would I create a body of work? I mean, most artists are known by a body of work. So how would I create my body of work that was exclusive to me? So I decided to become a plagiarist. So, if you're not familiar with that word, it's a copier. I just go copy something. So I went to the garden, and I actually cut down a sunflower, and I began to dissect it. And the first thing I noticed was God's simplest creation is remarkably complex. It's amazingly complex. We see the beauty of God's creation all around us each day, but we don't really give it much thought. I mean, this time of year in Wisconsin is beautiful compared to where I grew up in Texas. But you really don't understand the complexity of it unless you really examine it. And what I've come to realize now is God prepares us all for something that is so much bigger than ourselves to help further His kingdom and to create something. And that something is within each one of us. If you take a look at this sculpture as compared to the first one, it's a sunflower. Hopefully you can tell that. But it's specific to my life experiences. If you look at the petals, can you hear me okay? If you look at the petals, you'll see a feathering. And that feathering can only be done by a left-handed person. God made me left-handed. If a right-handed person tries to do that, it doesn't look the same because of the way the grinder spins. It's really crazy, but it can only look like that if you're left-handed. Because I've tried to train right-handed people how to do it, and it doesn't look the same. If you see the center of the flower, the curly things, those are horseshoe nails. And I grew up around horses and watched farriers work, and when they drive the nail through a hoof, they hammer it back and it curls like that, and then they nip it off. So, in the substructure of what the ball bearings are welded to is called the post cap. And I grew up in Oklahoma and Texas, and a lot of oil production pipe, recycled oil production materials used for fence and corral building, and that's where I learned how to weld, and that's how I learned to weld, was welding pipes and fences and corrals and things. So that's what gave me the idea to use them there. And the most common question people ask me is, how long does it take for you to make one of these? And the answer that I sometimes give, if I'm kind of in a feisty mood, I go 56 years. Because it truly has taken me 56 years of my life experience to determine how to make each one of my sculptures. Anytime I've been asked to build or create something specific for someone, I always study the original. I study the original that God's created. Be it a lily, a poppy, a coneflower that's in the back of the room, a fish, a turtle, an ant, an armadillo, whatever, I rely on God to show me the answers to what we can create together or fabricate in order to replicate His original. Okay? I know I'll never be able to match the beauty or creative engineering of our maker, but I hope to continue my evolution as an artist and develop my skills in order to get as close as possible. So, what do you think you can take away from this evening? All I can say is God is the creator of all things. He has created everything in the world. He has used us to create things that are good and are used for His purpose. He has given us life experiences to help others and to prepare us for work He is asking us to do or He will ask us to do. He gave me the blessing of creativity And craftsmanship, or how I like to explain it, as MacGyverism. I have the ability to put things together to create something people under God's influence will exchange money for. And at times, my gifts and talents are used for structural and functional purposes, like a smoker or a fence on a refuge in Honduras. In closing, too often we see someone with a particular talent or gift. You may think God must love or care for that person more than another. That's not true. I ask you to realize that God values each of us equally and has given us all gifts that are needed to further His plan. And don't be envious of the gifts or talents of others. Instead, nurse the gifts God has blessed you with and resolve to do the task He has uniquely qualified you to do. Thank you.